My time.
This time, the gentleman from California.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I concur with everything the gentleman from Tennessee just said. Thank you. Mr. Cohen and I do enjoy working together on a bipartisan basis on a great many issues. Today, this bill, H.R. 14, H.Res. 14, attempts to begin, if you will, a down payment on thanking the men and women of the Border Patrol and of ICE and other portions of Homeland Security for their tireless efforts to defend America, and particularly on an issue that I find very personal, that of human smuggling. Mr. Speaker, 5 years ago, I wrote the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of California expressing my concern after learning from a reporter that U.S. attorneys had refused to prosecute an alien smuggler apprehended while transporting a car loaded with undocumented immigrants. The smuggler, Mr. Antonio Aparo Lopez, had attempted to escape the arresting Border Patrol agents, and upon his recapture, the Border Patrol learned that this smuggler had 21 known aliases, had been arrested and deported more than 20 times without even having been prosecuted once. Mr. Speaker, this is what the Border Patrol once faced. It is something the Border Patrol no longer faces, and we would hope on a bipartisan basis would no longer face. As I dug deeper into this, I learned that this was, in fact, at that time, a common problem, and that Border Patrol agents had been forced to accept the reality that no matter how many times they did their job, often with people with large amounts of drugs, often with people who they knew were guilty of more heinous crimes, and in fact, sometimes when they knew that people who perhaps had abandoned the human beings they were trafficking in to die in the desert, they could not take action. On a bipartisan basis, I want to recognize the men and women of the Border Patrol for their tireless willingness to do this job with personal danger, having had rocks pummeled at them, having been shot at. The men and women of the Border Patrol and their allied agencies do what we ask them to do, even when we do not fully support them. The San Diego Border Patrol Sector Chief even told the House Subcommittee in a hearing how the failure to prosecute the foot soldiers in alien smuggling had created an opportunity in which, and I quote, "What would happen then, we would apprehend people that were guiding people across the country many times at risk, and without meeting prosecution guidelines, they would simply voluntarily return back to Mexico where they could continue to conduct their illicit activity. There is no level of consequences." Mr. Speaker, I'm glad to say that's no longer the case. I join with my colleagues on a bipartisan basis to say human smuggling, whether illegal immigrants or, in fact, victims of kidnapping around the world for purposes of prosecution, cannot be tolerated. We must have a zero-tolerance policy, and we must support the men and women that protect our borders and our interior. And